Hi there and welcome back to Sense Thinking. Am I to Bay? And today I'm going to talk to you about the elephant in the room. Now you might not be aware of this at all. This is really my elephant, but it has to do with a fundamental worldview, a fundamental understanding and worldview that is at the foundation of what I'm teaching in Sense Thinking and stands in contrast to, oh, here comes my cat. Kokoro, you go over there. Oh, she really wants to be. She loves Zoom calls. Okay. So there's a fundamental belief system or an understanding, a worldview that is underneath the dominant systems of education, naturally. We might be oblivious to it because we're so used to it. It's the water we swim in. And I am orienting my work from a different worldview. Before I explain exactly what that is, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the contrast that I'm seeing. For example, I've been looking at other teachings that are working with reading comprehension. And reading comprehension is funny because I'm even though I've led my first few videos have been about reading comprehension. By the way, my cat is up in the trellis, wandering up there. I don't know if you can see. She's some movement there. Okay, so she might fall on my head. Just be aware. So I'm talking about reading comprehension, but really what I'm doing is introducing a paradigm shift. And here's one of the ways it shows up. When I look at other people who are teaching the use of manipulatives for reading comprehension, one of the things that I see, this is my perspective, is that they are essentially bringing like fidget toys into a reading comprehension. And the idea, which I think is great, I don't argue. In fact, at some level, I'm sure it's probably effective. But what's happening is you're mapping, you're putting together the use of a manipulative to help reinforce what you're learning through reading, and help reinforce patterns that you're learning through the text. The idea there is that the text itself is essentially flat and sort of inanimate, and you need some way of bringing that to life. Something that's already inanimate, you have to somehow bring it to life for the reader. And so you can do this by bringing in manipulatives, and that will help to create some life out of this inanimate text. So that's the old view. That is a view that I appreciate. I understand where it comes from. There comes the cat. But it is not what I'm teaching. I'm teaching something very, very different. And the thing about what my teaching is that even though it is so different, you don't have to believe it, but you can do the practices that I teach to help you see if it's true. So it's a way of testing what I've come to understand. So what have I come to understand? I've come to understand that the text that you read, the information contained in that text is alive. Now, obviously not alive the way you and I are alive, at least not exactly, but alive in the sense that it is a field of information that is dynamic, that is responsive, that can change, and it changes with each person who interacts with it. And that what we receive on the text is just surface pointing to something richer and deeper, and that we can access that richer and deeper element of the text or whatever information we're studying through the sensing of the body. Okay, so I'm going to say that again, sort of these two contrasting spaces. One space is that information and the text is basically inanimate, it's flat, it's dead. The only life that it has is the life that we might read into it. I am suggesting, on the other hand, that text and that any information is actually alive, a living, dynamic ecosystem. Now, the use of the word alive is not the best word, but it's hard to find the right word here. But dynamic, responsive, sort of a complex. And so the words are just symbols of that complexity. And if you can learn how to access the aliveness, the complexity, the dynamic movement that's already fully available to you, then you will access this richness, this depth, this insight, understanding, new pathways forward from information and text. Okay, those two very big ideas. I'm going to tell you a little story. And it's a story that I like to, I sort of hold the story out for me as a possibility. And it's a story that was described, an experience that a man who was known as Rock, R-O-C, R. Ogilvy Crombie. I hope I'm getting his name right, but I will correct it if I'm not. And he wrote about his story in a few different places. Now, Rock is one of the founders of Findhorn community, a beautiful community in Scotland. I've never been there, but I've read about it, and friends have been there and have been influenced and inspired by what Findhorn is doing. So this was decades ago when he and wrote about this experience. And the experience is that he, since childhood, was able to see nature spirits. So he described this moment where he's in this beautiful garden, sitting against a tree, and he sees appearing in the garden a fawn. Now, what is a fawn? I want you to imagine that mythical, what we've considered a mythical creature, was half goat and half man, and plays a little flute like Pan. Okay, so imagine the fawn. The fawn is in the garden frolicking and dancing, and the fawn sees the man, and the fawn goes up to the man and looks at him, and the man, Rock, says hello, and the fawn is shocked, right? The fawn is shocked because he says, how can you see me? Usually your people, they don't see me. And Rock explains that, he can see and has been able to see nature spirits since he was a child. So they strike up this friendship, this relationship. And then one day the fawn says to him, to the human, I want to see your dwelling. Where do you live? So Rock says, sure, you can come visit my home. So they walk into town and up the stairs to his flat, and they go inside, and the fawn looks around. And one of the first things the fawn says is, well, what's that? And he points to the bookshelves lined with books. And Rock says, well, those are books. They contain all the information and knowledge that we have created. And the fawn is confused. He said, but why do you need them? Because can't you just access information because you want to? Can't you just access the knowledge because you want to? Rock says, well, no, we can't, we haven't, at least right now, we haven't figured out how to do that, right? But I love that story. I love that story because we can access information because we want to. It's now, again, I know that what I'm saying is, can be considered unbelievable, but I really invite you to have an open mind about this possibility, this crazy possibility, because I don't need you to believe. I do not need you to believe what I'm saying. But if you're curious, I can teach you how to access that information because you want to. And there's a lot more I could say in terms of what's appropriate, ethical, and how do we work with information. But the first step is even sort of waking up to the possibility that not only can you access information, in fact, you are accessing this information all the time. You wouldn't be alive and interacting with the world if you weren't already accessing fields of information intuitively, instinctively through your body. It's just that there are people, I'm one of those persons, but there are other people who have learned structures for accessing that information. So that way we can work with specific kinds of information. And this is very ordinary. My hope, my fantasy is that we will be in a very near future where everyone understands how ordinary it is for us to be able to access dynamic fields of information through our intention and by paying attention. So we set an intention and then we pay attention and we know how to use our body and our senses and our mind to be able to receive information from those fields. So that's it. That's my message for today. I hope you all have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye-bye.